I have another character for you. Back in the day, from '09 to about 16, I used to get up at 4 in the morning to do News Talk breakfast with an intern called Chris Donoghue, and I survived that. But before we started at 7 in the morning, there was a business breakfast, and one of the regular people who used to be in and out was a guy I got to know, Ronan Horgan. And for 25 years, he worked with Bank of Scotland. And you'll be aware, now we have banks leaving KBC Ulster. Well, we had an episode of banks leaving at that stage with Bossy and so on. Ronan reinvented himself with Capitalflow. And it was basically a business whereby he provided SME lending of different kinds, cash flow, and he's done it up to and in excess of €1 billion. But he hit the jackpot, he got a victim, yes, Bunk, a neobank with full European banking license, acquired Capitalflow. Here to tell the story of how a banker made good, please welcome Ronan Horgan.
Thanks, Ivan. Good intro, and good to meet you again. And great to be here this afternoon, meeting everybody, and I suppose telling my story of Capitalflow, and just hopefully, you can get some key nuggets and key takeaways, and they'll help you on your journey. But our journey hasn't finished, so. What I'm going to try to do probably in the next 10 minutes is cover 7 years. And as my wife said this morning, good luck with that one. So it starts with the financial crisis. I think we all remember that. 2008, 2009. I've been lending to SMEs through various different institutions for over 25 years. And the shit really hit the fan. 2008, 2009, it was a shit show for everybody. It was for businesses who'd lost their own businesses, entrepreneurs, families, people working in banks, the impact that it had on them. And for somebody like myself who'd been lending to SMEs, passionate about that, passionate about supporting them on their journey, I now was in a situation where I had to get into restructuring, debt management, really, really depressing stuff. I am an optimist by nature. So during those dark days, I did a lot of dreaming. I did a lot of dreaming about setting up a finance business and actually trying to reimagine what it would be like to have a finance business again. What would we do different? What were the lessons that we learned? And maybe even as a person, how would I be different in the way I led my team or organization? So that was that time. If you fast forward to 2012, I took voluntary redundancy. It probably wasn't a great time to take voluntary redundancy in your 40s with 2 kids, wife, mortgage, but I couldn't stay working in that environment, and I wanted to do something else. So getting that support at home to take that leap was really, really important. Luckily, I found work with Bibby Financial Services, which was a small invoice finance business who liked to spend a bit of time down in Punchestown, where the likes of Ivan and the lads would be. And it was great. I was back out on the road again. We're back out meeting SMEs, networking. But for me, I suppose there was unfinished business. And I really wanted to do more than just to offer invoice financing. It's a great product, by the way. Definitely you should investigate it. But I think SMEs and people in the room here, and I've heard earlier on listening to the founders, you need all types of funding to make the world go round. And there's different types of VC, private equity, senior debt, mezzanine, you name it. We've seen lots of it. So you need different types. So if you fast forward to 2015, and we're 7 years on now from the crash, I met up with my co-founder, and he had a great plan to create a finance business. And we started putting our plans together, both of us. A paper never refuses ink. So we had this fantastic, plan to grow quickly, break even after 10 months, and hey presto, everything would work out brilliantly. But life isn't like that, as you know. But we went and we did a number of road shows, met a number of advisors, and we eventually hooked up with a small private equity business called Pollen Street Capital. Pollen Street were a spin out themselves of the Royal Bank of Scotland, so they had financial services experience and they could understand what we were trying to do. They also had an interest in Ireland because we could see huge opportunity in Ireland at that time. Banks were leaving. If they hadn't left, they hadn't shown a huge amount of interest in helping businesses and entrepreneurs grow. So for us, that was a huge, driver. And the other thing I'd say about Pollen Street, unlike, I suppose, dealing with private equity, normally private equity want to invest in a business that's already there, it's already producing. They come in, they take a share, and then they grow it, and then they exit. In our case, we're very lucky that they want to seed the business right from the start, and that's what they did. So that was, like, to be honest with you, if we hadn't got the business seeded right at the start, we wouldn't be here today. So, critically, Pollen Street had only spun out themselves, so they were raising a fund. That fund was going to close at 300 million, but they hadn't closed the fund when we met them. So we really had to kind of take a chance that they were going to do it. I was leaving a well-paid job after taking redundancy prior to that. I think I spoke to a lot of people at the time, and I explained to them that if this doesn't happen, the only fallback, the only nest I have is 3 months' salary or 3 months' wages at that time. Asked lots of people, plenty of people in the room, plenty of friends and family and stuff like that. 95% said, you're absolutely bonkers. I mean, why would you do that? Like, they haven't closed the fund. I went to my wife, and she said, go for it, because otherwise you'd probably be a pain in the ass, and you'll be dreaming about this for the rest of your life. So we got things. I took that chance, and we got going, and we got going in that we had the plan. We had the financial models. Private equity is great at financial models and data. They just absolutely love data and stuff like that. But we now had to build a business. We had to bring people in. I had to persuade people who had well-paid jobs to come in and join us, who are experts in their field, be it underwriting, credit, lending, operations. We had to pick an IT platform. I'd never done that before, and picking the right one, and having a number of different IT platforms, and the technical side of it was a real challenge. So setting up and putting those plans into action is not straightforward. We had to put legals in place. We had to deal with banks. So we had private equity promise, and then we had to go out and deal with the banks. And as you know, that can be torture, dealing with them. But it was nice to be on the other side for a change, and actually being able to identify what they were trying to get out of the deal and what we were trying to get out of the deal, but knowing what they were trying to get out. So that took time, and it took a lot of focus, and we started bringing people in, but the fund hadn't closed. So we'd no revenue, and we'd no revenue coming in. We'd a lot of cost being built up into the business. And at one stage, things start to get very, very hairy, because people were saying, like, when is this fund going to close? And all your best laid plans, as Mike Tyson points out here, are fine until you get a punch in the mouth. And that's what we had. And, our own team were asking us, because they're out talking to customers and they were trying to generate new business. They were asking us, when is this fund when is it going to close? When are we going to get funding into place? And there was a lot of talk and no action. And even internally, we were thinking, well, we'll change the name from Capitalflow to Talk Finance, because nothing was happening. And that was a joke, but there was a huge amount of pressure on us, because these guys had left their jobs. We'd been out talking to customers. This was our brand, and we hadn't even got going, and our reputations were going to be in the bin. Luckily, again, you need some luck. I managed to persuade the private equity firm that we had the plan, we had the pipeline, we had those customers, we had the revenue coming through, so they transferred over €2 million. I always remember that week because we managed to get out in the first week in April 2016, and we lent that €2 million. And that was a huge confidence booster because they hadn't closed the fund, but at the same time they had the belief in our business. And we're out of the blocks. You know, we were networking, we were marketing, we were down on Punchestown, we were out everywhere trying to really build this business up to something. And in 2016, we advanced 32 million. In 2019, we advanced 300 million. Now, in 2019, we broke even. That was 3 years after that brilliant plan we'd put together. So, a bit like Ivan alluded to, and we talked about earlier on, you might have a great plan, but it's going to take an awful long time. So we broke even in 2019, and 2019 was a fantastic year. I mean, we were nurturing the business, we had invoice discounting, we had leasing, hire purchase as products, all lending to SMEs, and then we brought in property lending. We're financing hotels, pubs, property investments, and we do all of those things at the moment still. And things are going really well. We had a great team. Really important to build that team around. We had an office in Santry, brand new office. We moved from Fitzborough, a basement, to Santry, 6,000 square foot open office where we are today. We had a new office in Bagot Street. You know, things were going really well. And we also, because we were owned by private equity, they were thinking about their exit strategy. Now, they think about their exit strategy from the day they meet you. So don't ever be illuded that this is going to be a great partnership and, you know, you're going to go on for the rest of your life doing this type of stuff. These guys want out. They want their money back and they want a decent return. So we started putting together a plan. And that plan was to identify, I suppose, a UK bank or financial services business that could actually fund us and come in and acquire us, and literally take all that senior debt that we'd borrowed from the international banks and remove it with their bank liquidity. I'm not going to get into technicalities, but effectively what it would do is make us from break-even position to give them a return on their equity between 20 to 30%. So we had the strategy, we're off again, we're looking for our exit plan. And then, of course, just like earlier on, Brexit happens. Start of January 2020, Brexit happens. That removed that market completely. UK banks no longer interested in entering the EU because they can't and they couldn't. So therefore we have to start thinking again. But then COVID happens. And when COVID happened, it really kind of knocked us sideways, like it probably did everybody in the room here. But as a young business, we had about 70 people working with us. We were growing fast, and then suddenly we had to change direction. We had to manage our costs, we had to hold on to our money. We had to let 30% of our sales force, not our workforce, go, which was really difficult. And to do that, to keep the business going and start thinking again about another exit strategy was a challenge. But at the back end of 2020, we came up with a new strategy. You know, and that new strategy started thinking about, okay, the UK is dead. Let's go to Europe. Let's find a fintech in Europe, because a lot of the fintechs had plenty of deposits, plenty of liquidity, but they hadn't got any customers that were generating income for them, really. You know what I mean? There was no lending platforms. If you think of Revolut, N26, all these guys have lots of customers, but they're not actually lending to them, so they're not generating loan income. So a bit like the UK bank, we went and looked for a European bank. And that took about 6 months. A lot of due diligence, a lot of advisors, roadshows, presentations. But we finally found our partner in July 2021, Bunk, as you say, who are a fully licensed European bank, have over 1.5 million deposits, have very little lending, although they do mortgages now since they acquired us. And our business is valued at 140 million in the media, but as Ivan knows, you wouldn't believe everything you read in the papers. So for me, sorry, I'm thirsty. the team took a visit to Bunk, or some of the team took a visit to Bunk's head office, and this is the way they showed up. But we have revenues now of 40 million. We invested heavily in digital during COVID because we knew that digital was really important to how we scale the business and how do we reach out to our customers. We have a team of over 80 people. We've advanced over €1 billion to SMEs, and we really put people first in everything we do. So we're trying to look after our team, because we know if we look after our team will look after their customers. But behind every single business, there's a person. So what we really want to get across, and one of the things we really value, is never mind what the product is, whether it's hire purchase, leasing, it's commercial, it's overdraft, whatever the product is, whatever the balance sheet is, there's a family, there's a business, there's an entrepreneur behind that. So putting them first in everything you do when you're thinking about how you're going to help them grow is the key thing for us. So takeaways, I suppose, is you have to have a great team. Technology is great. Love technology, love the way it makes life a lot easier for all of us, but it's all about having a great team and a platform. Building trust, especially with your customers and with your suppliers and with your vendors and amongst your team, is critical. I think being on the journey is much more important than where you're going to or the destination. Building out that business, because you need to be able to change when change happens or when something comes up and bites you. Making decisions, not sitting on the fence. Make decisions. Take action today. Take actions every day. They won't always be right, but they will create something for you. You need to reflect on where you're at in the journey. I think we're at that stage now. We're now being acquired by Bunk. The Dutch, don't know much about the Dutch, but we're going to find out lots about them. They're very, enthusiastic about growing the business and scaling the business and becoming a world-class technology/bank in the future. We want to be part of that journey. So for me, look, everyone here in the room is on a journey of life, journey of business. The most important thing, I think, I would say in any of it, is to have a bit of fun along the way. Thank you.
Well done.